اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج اللهم ما شاء الله عجل لوليك الفرج يا طلعة الرشيدة مهدي 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 يا غرة الحميدة. Okay, I understand that those two parts are quite difficult. So all you have to do is recite the Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. Ya talat al-Rashida, Mahdi, 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 Ya ghurrat al-Hamida, Mahdi, MashaAllah, Mahdi, Mahdi, Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj, Allahumma ajil li وليك الفرج اللهم عجل وليك الفرج اللهم عجل وليك الفرج How often do you heed us?
Islam and art have come hand in hand for centuries. Today, art can be found in Islam in various different forms. Ali Fadhil is an Islamic reciter who uses his artistic talents to propagate the teachings of the Ahlulbayt alayhimussalam. But just how do we define art in Islam? We asked Ali Fadhil this and followed him as he travelled to Norway to recite for the community in Oslo.
So currently we are sitting in the waiting lounge, awaiting our gate to open. The gate number is gate 42. So inshallah we'll be making our way within the next 5 minutes. Hopefully it'll be a prosperous and successful journey to Oslo. But in the meantime, we are drawing inspiration from my role model, Qasim al-Karbala'i. Just listening to some of his tunes and some of his natmiyat, his masa'ib or his nohas. And analysing his artistic nature. Why? Because I believe he is an artist on the mimbar. He not only recites the poem, but I believe he infuses his heart and his mind and his soul with the poem itself. So that whatever he recites, it actually feels like it's coming out from the heart, in the sense of an artistic nature. Artistically, what he does is he infuses himself with the poem. Therefore, when he recites it, it actually looks like it comes out from the heart and his mind and his soul. So now we'll be off to gate 42, and I bid thee goodbye.
What do I define as creativity and art? Creativity is the act of turning new and imaginative ideas into reality. Now, it involves two processes. One is thinking and the other is producing. But however, if you have these ideas but don't sort of act upon them, you are imaginative, but you're not creative. So thinking and producing. So someone thinks he's imaginative, but in order to put it into practicality, in order to make it creative, he has to actually produce something. Likewise, creativity is the process of bringing something new into being. However, it needs passion and it needs commitment.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I think you can. This feels very, very weird to be filmed and makes me feel like some sort of celebrity, which I'm not. Okay, now it's reaching a stage where you're so tired and physically exhausted that you begin to hallucinate and you begin to say things which you don't actually mean. My apologies.
What did you say?
Daughter. Huh?
What did you say?
I haven't said anything. I swear to God, I have not said anything at all.
To what extent is creativity and art important in Islam? There's a very, very prominent verse in the Quran where the actual term beauty is used. Chapter 15, verse 16, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "And we have placed within the heavens great stars and have beautified it for the observers." So what the Arabic verse is, وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. So in essence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually mentioned the word beauty in the Quran. And of course, when someone looks at the natural habitats and the natural environment, immediately you are sort of entranced within the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creations. So creativity in art, although the creativeness or the creativity is imaginative because you're not actually acting upon it, but it is very important in Islam because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned it numerous times. And also the visual representations that we have today, for example, the Kaaba. Before Islam, it wasn't much of a thing of beauty. Now, however, it very much soothes the heart whenever someone looks at the Kaaba. Before, it used to be just 4 blocks of walls and covered by a cloth. But now, there's artistic calligraphy. There's the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and even the mosque itself, the masjid itself. It's very much a beautiful place to go to, which is very important because it adds to that element of soothing, I think, to the heart when one looks at the Kaaba.
Bro, as soon as we get there, I'm going straight to bed. I don't want to be knackered. Not today and tomorrow as well. Yeah, we'll wake up around 6, practice for an hour, we'll be alright.
I mean, an example of Islamic history, I think the first person to actually use something which is artistic in the sense was, I think, Bilal al-Habashi, when the Prophet had asked him to recite the adhan. But he also not only asked him to recite the adhan, but he asked him to recite the adhan with his beautiful voice. So I think the first person in history, in Islamic history, to add another element to the message of Islam was Bilal when he stood on top of the masjid and he called people towards prayer. Now this can be seen, of course, I mean, there's another element to it because when you're going towards prayer, it's something which is beautiful in the sense that you are now standing before your Lord and now you are speaking towards your Lord and He is replying back to you sometimes. So the beautiful thing about this is that when someone uses a soothing tone to call you towards prayer, it's actually seen as an artistic and creative thing. The benefits, I think, of utilizing creative talent is that of psychologically grasping people's emotions, because sometimes when there's a message that's been given from A to B, sometimes it's a bit two-dimensional in the sense that I speak, you listen, and then you try to understand what I'm saying. However, if you use the only elements that are used in this are the elements of, or for example, hearing and understanding. But if you were to perhaps use the element of a voice, what that will give is another dimension to the message. So it will give it 2 dimensions. One, not only a narration or narrating a story or a verse or a hadith, but also using your voice, which adds another emotional element to this message. So the benefits of utilizing this creative talent in Islam is that not only are you sort of using your imagination in terms of bringing something new to the religion, but you're also being creative in the sense of actually producing something new in terms of recitations or in terms of the lectures or in terms of any media or any artistic talents that people may have. I mean, providing the youth or providing people with an opportunity to express themselves is something which is very important within a community because initially a mosque, not only was it a place of learning, not only was it a place of worship, but also developed into a place of learning and a place of knowledge and a place where a youth can connect with his religion and also be able to express himself in any talent that he may have or he or she may have. So likewise, the Islamic centers that we have today provide an opportunity for the youth to express themselves in modern techniques or modern ways of spreading the message of Islam, be it any type of artistic form that they have. Predominantly within the culture that we live in, or predominantly the culture that I live in, it's recitations, poetry, graphic designing, media, and so on and so forth. So it's important that the youth can also integrate within their own society to be able to learn about new techniques that they don't know of, back in their own culture. So for example, if I'm living in the West today, it's important for me to understand and to gain knowledge about useful techniques that I don't know about in order to express myself. So for example, me personally, I know about, for example, the Arabic way of recitations, but that doesn't stop me from learning about the Western way of recitations, the Western music, for example, the Western music industry. It doesn't stop me from gaining bits and pieces of techniques that they use in order for me to spread the religion, but in a way which is compatible with a Westerner. So that's why, because we are living in a multicultural society, because we're living in the West, it's important for Islamic centers not to be so traditional and not to be so narrow-minded, let's just say, in order to only allow people who have certain artistic features to express themselves. It's important for them to, for example, delve into new niches that have a good audience in order to have a good impact on a wider scale, rather than just a very cultural or, you know, very one-dimensional impact. The examples that Muslims have, I mean, in terms of talents that they have, is very vast, but I think it sort of falls under the banner of revolution, I think, because due to the sort of the Middle East and the Arab uprising, for example, there's been since 2011, since 2001, you know, the whole 9/11 events, Islam has been under the focus, but recently it's been much more under the focus, and everyone is sort of being involved in political political proceedings within the Middle East. However, if you turn it back into artistic forms, I think most of the youth want to sort of remove the misconceptions that they have, or remove the misconceptions that people have of Islam. People always, obviously, you know, the whole usual talk that we have, that we hear about, you know, Muslims being terrorists and so on and so forth. But what talents that people have are, which is rising, is the fact that people blog, people do poetry in Western, Western forms. For example, rapping or hip hop, or something along those lines that the West are compatible with. So there's, for example, yeah, like I said, blogging, poetry, there's graphic design, there's the whole media, television companies, and so on and so forth. So there are many talents, and of course, Muslims have always been rich in talent in terms of propagating the message of Islam. Muslims are using their talents very wisely, I think, but it's just the fact that they need much more opportunities to be able to express themselves. The fact that they're going to university means that they can utilize any artistic form that they want, because, you know, university is a place of learning, and university is a place of expressing themselves. I think propagating the message of Islam through, for example, societies, through blogging, through workshops, through seminars, these, in a sense, it can be artistic because they have a thought, or there's a thinking process, and it also becomes creative in the sense that they're acting upon it, or something is being produced. It's all about research, and researching what talents are out there, researching what, you're researching ways and methods in order to give another dimension to propagating the message of Islam. If you stick to the traditional ways, although it may be beneficial to the community, but it's not beneficial to the wider community in terms of spreading the message of Islam to the wider community. So I think on a day-to-day basis, if you just spend, I don't know, half an hour or an hour a day, maybe utilising the talents that you have, and going on to research methods and techniques of expressing yourself in a different form.
Did you get the Mickey Mouse thing?
Oh no. Bro, I just woke up, man. Beg allow me. Nuri, where's that poem? Book of Love. My heart has been stolen, no, my heart has been stolen by a book that every day I read, and each time it is taken from me, for its return I plead. A book of love that plants within each of its readers a seed. Words that cry out the virtues and wisdom of this I lead. Come and bathe within His love for even His love is deep. And when this book speaks, it trickles from my heart. Beauty I've not seen, Ali. Beauty.
I think blogging is probably one of the most prominent ways of expressing yourself, because blogging, in a sense, is your opinions and your thoughts contextualized and put onto a format or a media. Now, you have the time to think, you have the time to do the research, you have the time to articulate yourself in a manner in which the recipient will be able to understand and contextualize your thoughts or your opinions. It's very neutral. I mean, in terms of the websites that you put on is very neutral, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. So blogging is a very powerful way of expressing yourself. There are social media such as Facebook and Twitter, but it's not very efficient to start, you know. It's not very efficient in terms of expressing your full opinion regarding a subject. You can give little snippets of what you think, but that's only just a thinking. I mean, in terms of productivity, it's all about, you know, putting something into a document and putting it on the website so that people can understand from a Shia point of view or a Muslim point of view or whatever point of view your thoughts and your opinions. I mean, it goes without saying that media is one of the most efficient and one of the most powerful ways of spreading the message of Islam. And spreading any message, actually. Television companies have spent millions and millions of pounds to reach out to the wider community or to the wider society or even to the world in terms of spreading a message. And every television company has an agenda, and they have aims and they have objectives. So in order to have an effect on people, you put something onto a channel, and that will have an effect on the wider society.
A sweet name we recall, and as we fall in the world, I fall that in Oslo, we raise our hands to the Lord, and for Mahdi we call, and for Mahdi we call.
In terms of Muslims and you know, media, I think they've done very well in being able to learn from what is out there in terms of, you know, prominent TV stations such as BBC or ITV. So being able to learn the techniques that they use and re-implementing it into their own channels, to making it you know, accepted by the whole wider society. And of course, you know, television channels have to cater for the wider audience and cater for every single type of audience. So it's good to see that there's political shows, there's poetry shows, there's women's shows, there's youth shows, there's you know, there's every kind of niche that you can think of. These television companies have covered it, so it's good.
So, Brother Hassan, you said that clapping I stay away from.
That would be better.
Yeah, and but I'm okay for them to recite with me.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's perfect. Because because the thing is, I don't want them to be like listening for an hour.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I want to get them really to start engaging.
Keep in mind, it's not the English audience.
Yeah.
So they might have difficulties pronouncing the English.
Mehdi?
Word. Yeah, that's fine.
Mehdi's fine? Yeah.
Mehdi's fine.
All I want them to recite is Mehdi.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. Or for example, famous Arabic words,
Yeah, that's fine.
like Allahumma ajili walika faraj.
Okay.
Yeah.
Previously, I mean, what I've just said previously regarding the research and things, it's best, I think, I mean, you're not going to get the talent or the creative art inside you perfect from a young age. But as long as you can step on something which you know that you have, what you do is then you go and ask experts and get feedback regarding how good you are at this artistic nature that you have. For example, very basically, if you feel that you have a nice voice or you feel that you are confident on the stage, then you can go to someone who is prominent in terms of recitations and ask him just for half an hour of his time, just to sit down with him and to be able to practice in front of him. If he feels that you have the potential, then he will push you forward. If you know, if he feels that, you know, you need a lot more work, then fine, you need a lot more work. But it's best to take feedback and advice from experts out there who have got the experience to tell you that, you know, you're good or you're not good. However, it's very difficult for a person who has the experience to tell someone who's so passionate and so you know, passionate about this art that he has, it's very difficult to tell him, no, you're not good at the job, or you know, you're surplus to requirements. So you have to have, you know, a big heart and a big mind to be able to take criticism or to be able to take feedback, especially when it comes to something that you feel that you're passionate about, something that you feel that I am good at, but someone's telling you, no, you're not good at. But you just have to either one, try and prove them wrong and go back and practice, or two, accept that maybe I don't have this art and I need to go to something different. Or maybe that this expert, or you can ask this expert to you know, direct you in another direction. But the most important thing is to never give up on what you believe that you have. The most important thing is to never say to yourself, okay, because he said so, I'm going to give up. He might, this person or this expert might have given his opinion, but it's only an opinion. At the end of the day, it's up to you to perfect this art that you have. And the more you grow up, the more skills you learn. And one thing that I can recommend is to go on YouTube, or to go on websites which are, you know, which give loads of information. But YouTube, it's funny because you can just type in how to something, and this how to will come up. So, for example, let's just say you want to know how to sing. You just say how to sing, and there's tutorials and workshops on how to actually use your voice in a melodious tone.
This world would fall apart, will we find our Saviour? If not patient, we shall wait as one whilst all scatter. In the remnants of the world, Mahdi, seek your Shia. You'll find us in Karbala, you'll find us in Karbala, and Najaf with Haidar, and Najaf with Haidar, waiting for you to govern. Mahdi, Mahdi, Mahdi. This is a really, really nice poem.
In terms of self-fulfillment and in terms of being content with something that you enjoy in life, it's important to pursue this talent. But likewise, you have to prioritize in terms of your future. And if you feel that this talent that you have is going to affect, or it does not have a maximum effect, or it doesn't have a very efficient effect on modern society, or even spreading the message of Islam, then you may need to prioritize in terms of what is important for me and what is important for my society. Likewise, what I would recommend is, for example, going for a career which is worthwhile in terms of bringing up a family, in terms of, you know, in terms of integrating within society. But likewise, on the side, you can always have this talent as a hobby, or have this talent as something on the side in which you can escape from the, you know, the troublesome world and the stressful world, and then go into, and then, you know, remove all this stress, and then go through this hobby that you have in order to pursue it further. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
The soother to the eye and sight, the beacon of both light and plight. I have heard tales and stories of the miracles and glories of the comforter of worries, the comfort and the heart's delight, the soother to the eye and sight, the beacon of both life and plight. The king beneath the golden dome.
Brother Ali Fadhil has completed his BA as well as MA in Islamic Studies at the Islamic College of London. He is also famous for his appearances and shows at Ahlulbayt TV. It is time to invite the famous and well-known brother Ali Fadhil with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
First and foremost, the inspiration behind the whole recitations and the whole lamentations is the call for the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. Of course, we believe that the Ahlulbayt are a rope towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we seek the wasila of Ahlulbayt to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's first and foremost, the inspiration that I have for reciting is for the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. Now, in terms of like a live person that I can interact with, there are many reciters out there who are artists within
within their own right, in the sense that when they recite with a passion. But you know, a famous Iraqi reciter by the name of Mullah Basim al-Karbala'i, he's probably one of the, you know, he's in a league of his own in terms of recitations and making recitation an art rather than just, you know, seeking the emotions of people. What he does is when he stands on the minbar, or when he stands on the pulpits, he becomes entrenched within the poem, and therefore that is relayed within the recitations in terms of his vocal cords, in terms of how much he looks at people. There's many skills that he's picked up over the time, obviously because of his experience. So yeah, in terms of inspiration, I take from Mullah Basim Karbala'i and of course the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. But I mean, I grew up in a household where you know, Ziyarat al-Hussein, for example, or the love of Imam al-Hussein, the love of Ahlulbayt alayhi salam was profound, and is more or less sort of, you know, drummed into me when I was from a very young age. So growing up in this sort of atmosphere where, you know, Muharram we take very seriously, Fatimiyya we take very seriously, Ramadan we take very seriously, all these seasons, we have various seasons in which we wear black, or, you know, to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Or for example, you know, we go through Ramadan periods where it's very busy. My dad's, you know, a lecturer, my mum's a reciter, my sister's a reciter, so my whole family sort of lived within this household of lamentations and recitations for Ahlul Bayt. So it's something natural for me to sort of, you know, grasp whatever my parents have taken on board for this life and the hereafter, and grasp what they've taken and sort of, you know, take it on into another level in terms of English, and hopefully, you know, I've provided some sort of significance in terms of English lamentations and recitations. Of course, living within the Iraqi culture is predominantly in the Arabic language. You know, all the programs, all the seminars, anything that they have was in the Arabic language. And obviously, I grew up loving the Arabic recitations and lamentations. But of course, living in the West, it's a different issue because, you know, you have a message, and the message is Imam al-Hussein's message. Now, it's all good and well catering for your own audience or catering for your own culture in the Arabic language, but I felt that there was a lot of people, or there were a lot of reciters who actually recited in Arabic, and they catered for their own Middle East, or, you know, people who recited in Arabic. But I felt that there was a need to do the recitations in English because there were only sort of a select few, and, you know, the message of Imam Hussein is, of course, you know, needless to say, it's a universal message. So in that sense, the difficulties that I faced was because I grew up in a community which is predominantly Arab and Iraqi. What that meant is that they were very sensitive or very awkward to the whole English lamentations. I mean, I don't blame them for anything, because the way the English lamentations or English recitations started, especially within the Iraqi culture, is that what we did was we took an Iraqi tune or an Arab tune and try to fit English words to that. Now, within the world of music or within the world of recitations, that doesn't work, because the Arabic tune or the Arabic poem has its own set of syllables, has its own melody, has its own, you know, minor and major and so on and so forth. There's loads of different musical sort of technical words that I can use, but the main crux of the issue is that Arabic poetry or Arabic recitations, English does not fit into that. I mean, the mistake I did was that when I first started up, I recited Arabic tunes but English words. Some of them may have worked, others clearly didn't, and, you know, people were very sensitive, and they didn't fight against it, but they didn't want to move away from the whole, you know, traditional Arabic programs. Of course, I received a lot of difficulties from the elder generation who were, you know, very much against bringing in English because of the fact that, you know, it might impede upon their majalis or impede upon their programs and so on and so forth. But I mean, I sort of ignored the whole elderly lot, because why it is that we focused on the English majalis that we had within our community, and thankfully 10 years ago, you know, 15 years ago, we started English programs. So poetry was very, very new. So the fact that it was new, it wasn't accepted straight away, until slowly, you know, you keep soldiering on, and you know, you find a sort of system, you find a rhythm, and people get used to it. In terms of giving up, never. I've never ever once thought about giving up, and I never will, inshallah.
Justice, valor, strength, kindness, morals, truth, and of course all his attributes, I believe, are encapsulated within this next poem by Nouri Sadar, where he says, "You gave us life and meaning and purpose, your holy message we won't forget."
You know, up-and-coming reciters won't face many difficulties in terms of cultural differences or fitting into the English language, because I think most of the centres are very much receptive to the English language being recited, especially in lamentation or poetry form. Now, the only difficulties that I think is possibly finding a balance, which I find very difficult myself, finding a balance between the West and the East in terms of recitations. Now, catering for your own audience means that you have to sort of recite to the way they like. Now, if I recite English to the way they like, it might be okay for only the Shia audience. But what we want to do is we want to expand that to make it sort of an audience where it's not predominantly Shia. So the non-Muslim audiences don't know about latum, or don't know about majalis, or don't know about, ziyara, or they don't know about, your typical traditional Arabic majalis, or even English majalis. But what they do know is music. Now, what they do know is, honor. They do know, they know concepts and principles that are universal to them, and especially if it's universal to and it's definitely universal to the message of Islam. For example, honor, or love, bravery, courage. All these things are concepts very much entrenched within the Islamic findings, but they are also familiar to the Western audiences. So what you want to find is you want to strike a balance between something which is obviously jurisprudentially acceptable, as well as it being accepted within the Western audience. Now, like I said, Western audiences know about music, but they don't know about anashid, or they don't know about latmiyat. So what you're going to have to do is you have to redefine your wording to make it customary for them. So, for example, when you're releasing a latmiya, you don't say I'm releasing a latmiya, I'm releasing a track, for example, or an album, for them to be familiar. Now, once they do, now that's in terms of, for example, publication or marketing. Now, in terms of actually the track itself, what you want to do is you want to try and take from the English or the Western type of music. Now, they have something called, which is minor and major. For example, on the piano, you find the black and the white keyboards. That is minor and major. They have different melodies. Now, the Arab type melody is very, very enhanced, especially in terms of Arabic music, because you have, maqamat, which is in terms of recitation. For example, you find in Medina, the adhan that is recited. Now, that maqam, the way it is recited, the melody that is recited at, is called Hijaz. Now, so for example, using that same concept, the Western music audience also have different types of melodies, and they are minor and major. So why don't we take their melodies and put some English words to that? Because obviously, because it's Western, most of them have English words. So English words are customary to that particular melody. So then once you take their melody and put English words to it, and the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we have sort of we are able to then cross the barriers and build some bridges emotionally, musically, and artistically between the West and the East. Do you believe that Allah gives talent, or is talent sort of nurtured, and through perseverance and through hard work you then obtain that talent? I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obviously given every single human being something which they can work with. Maybe it's a case of you not knowing that you have this talent. So I actually believe that, yeah, if through hard work and through nurturing and through perseverance, you can find that talent that Allah has given you. But sometimes it differs from human to human. Sometimes this raw talent is out and they know how to use this raw talent, but that raw talent needs nurturing so that it can be controlled. Other people who don't necessarily feel they have a talent, but through practice or through coincidence, they find out, oh, I actually do have that talent. So then what that needs is hard work, and then that needs perseverance in order to extract that talent that you have. So it's a bit of both. Allah has given you that kind of talent, or Allah has given you that blessing, but it depends on that. It's a subjective thing. It depends on the human being himself, if he can find that talent, or he has that talent but needs to control it. So it's a bit of both.
And do you heed us, O Lord, who turns this world at your world's prosperity, tyranny men have held? For how long has our beloved alone the world circled? For how long has our beloved alone this world circled? O Lord, hasten his return. O Lord, hasten his return. For helpless is this world. For helpless is this world. Searching for him the earth turns. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. O Lord, hasten his return. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-enthusiasm. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Ya طلعت الرشيدة مهدي 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 يا غرة الحميدة مهدي 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 مهدي. Turmoil shakes this planet, its earth for his flag waits. When he plants it in the ground, opens to him its gates, and for his command it yearns, for his speech he awaits, ready to love what he loves and hate what Mahdi hates, and hate what Mahdi hates. In his absence the world burns. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. O Lord, hasten his return. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Allahumma mashallah ajil li waliyika al-faraj. Ya طلعت الرشيدة مهدي 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 يا غرة الحميدة MashaAllah. Lord, there's no fear in this prayer when his return's certain. Behind the cloud he watches. Behind the cloud he watches, and soon shall rise his dawn. And if death writes down our names, and if death writes down our names, we rejoice, others mourn. For when he rises again, for when he rises again, we'll rise him. We'll rise with him reborn. We'll rise with him reborn. Of his return, no concern. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. O Lord, hasten his return. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj. 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 If this world would fall apart, would we find our Saviour? If not patient we await, as one whilst all scatter. In the remnants of the world, Mahdi, seek your Shia. You'll find us in Karbala. You'll find us in Karbala and Najaf with Haidar, and Najaf with Haidar, waiting for you to govern. Mahdi, 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 Mahdi. Oh Lord, hasten his return. Mahdi, Mahdi. مهدي 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 اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج.